Hi, David. How's everyone doing?
Well, Josh, thank you.
Hi there.
Hi, Stephen.
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Dave, hello. Carol, hi. Now,
Hey,
let's
everybody.
start video. There we go.
Yeah.
There we go. There we go. We're going here.
Sam Sneed.
Yeah, sometimes it comes up with that. Sometimes my real name.
Is that your alias?
Oh, you know that's a character.
Your
Yeah,
superhero name?
years ago, I thought I was being clever. Before I realized I'm not clever, I thought I was being clever and was going to, bypass remain anonymous in front of Google. Well, what was I thinking? Of course, yeah. But anyway, sometimes I'm whatever strange account they have me, and I'm under that, or sometimes my real name. I'm never really sure. But yeah, he was a great golfer at one point.
Okay.
I like
To recognize.
that he's still kept in the hearts and minds of folks. Yeah.
Cool. Well, I'll call this meeting to order. It's 7:01. Welcome, everyone. Why don't we open it for public comment? I don't see anyone else here. I don't have any public comments that I've received. Has anyone else here received any public comments they want to share?
I've not.
Okay. All right, let's move on to the approval of the minutes. I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Second?
Okay, Dave moved, George seconded. Any discussion? Okay, no discussion. Call for a vote. Cheryl, how do you vote? Okay, George,
Yes.
Dave,
Yes.
Stephen. Okay, Jordan,
Yes.
Sam Sneed,
Yes. Yeah. From the grave.
and I vote yes. All right, it's unanimous. Okay, let's move on to the really only agenda item of importance tonight, which is discussion about the report. I'm going to first start by sharing my screen and bringing up where it is right now. One moment.
And this is the part where I lean in, even though it doesn't help me see it any closer, and everyone gets like a zoom in of my nostril, like I'm a grandmother or something.
Current version. Okay.
Here we go. I'm going to do the same here.
So yeah, I didn't make any changes really besides just approving the basic tweaks that were there. But do we have any questions? Why don't we start with this? Do we have any questions about this first page?
No.
Looks good.
Okay, 1 second. There we go. Okay.
I can't remember. I had made like a small typographical edit today, but I can't remember which page it was on.
Okay, I'm pretty sure I approved it. And keep in mind, we still have 10 days. So, if there's something that we haven't addressed tonight, I feel like we can still keep tweaking it. Not necessarily up until the last second, but I don't think this is the very last crack that everyone gets on it. Here's page 2.
Just as a housekeeping point on number 1 there, I only listed the towns that I could remember, but there are actually more like a dozen. And if people know of other towns that we have, looked at, talked about, we should fill in those dots or just close the parentheses.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think we looked at Shabig Island. At least I don't remember that.
Yeah, I'm not, when did, I'm trying to think of the specifics of Shabik.
Steve sent us an article from the BDN, I think, that was about their broadband system they had there, right, Steve?
Yep.
And
Okay.
that kind of counts as research. It was passed around.
Yes, I would agree. I'll leave it like this, and then if anyone remembers additional municipalities, we'll add it.
Okay.
Just gonna adjust spacings.
Now, again, in point 2, just again, as mostly a cleanup, I'd written originally a range of $15,000 grants. There was supposed to be another number, range of 15 to 25, so, or something. So in other words, it's either,
Thank you.
I don't think they're, we could say approximately, instead of a range. Because I actually think they're, could be very different numbers.
Sure.
Okay.
That's good.
Do we need to address here the recent developments with regard to further grants in Lincolnville that was reported during the course of the past week or so?
Be good to note that.
Well,
yeah, I think we should.
Yeah,
Well, that's something that's going to occur without our action.
Hold on.
That is
One at a time. One at a
Sorry.
time. Stephen first.
I just wanted to say, we obviously have to address that somewhere in here, because that's, we would look like we don't know what's going on in our own town if we don't acknowledge that. So we definitely have to address it, I think. And, there are several places in the memo it could be addressed. Hello?
This seemed, this seemed like not a bad place to do it, because we do make reference to public and private entities seeking these grants.
Yeah.
And maybe it's, my only thought would be, we sort of talk about it generally here. And maybe we want to just sort of set this out early rather than late in the document. But I'm more than open to.
We talk
putting it
about
someplace else.
LCI specifically in the next point, just FYI.
Okay.
Paragraph 2, I could just see a final sentence saying recently Lincolnville received whatever they received, and just make a simple sentence.
Or we are aware.
Yep. Whatever just reference what we're receiving.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Who's Anonymous Chamberlain? Chameleon?
Not me.
That's really funny. There's no one on here. We have.
At one point, I asked who was anonymous, and they answered me, but I don't remember now. But if you go back.
No, I was on here at one time, but I thought I was just anonymous. I don't know which of the anonymouses I was.
There's Anonymous, Turtle, Goose, and Chameleon. It's really funny. I'm sure it's probably one of you. You just don't realize it.
I was one.
Yeah, I could. Yeah, I think I put something there. I could be one of those too, because I didn't see a place to put my name or something. I don't know. Yeah.
We're not being Zoom bombed here.
Well, does someone want to take a crack at that? Maybe it doesn't have to be at this very second, but
Okay.
But I agree. We should certainly address it, and point 3 seems to be the best place. Are there any other comments on adding that?
Well, I just think if we do add it, we should mention the number that they're intending to serve and who they are. Because I think that that's a small number that is Lincolnville.
Yeah.
And we also need to say that they're going to be paying the rates that Lincolnville Cable is charging. So we need to make that a point.
Okay.
well.
I was going to say, I think we should actually talk about it for a second, because I think it's a substantive point. I think
Let's do that. Sorry, I should have added that to the agenda. Let me bring up their press release so we can all look at it. I've got it right here. And let's have a conversation right now about the implications of this announcement.
Well, I just would like to preface this with I just am confused as how we can organically infuse this into what is already written. Especially since, well, it's not attached, but when I was reading through this before, and I mentioned this to Josh, it seems a little strange to me that they're offering a service that they're not offering anyone else, which is fully symmetrical fiber optic at 100 megabits. And
They used to offer it. They used to offer it.
Well, do they anymore?
No.
Okay.
No.
But they're also offering, it's free for the first 6 months, and then they have the choice to either downgrade or subscribe to the service.
Right.
But they're also picking up all of the installation costs regardless of the length of the installation needed.
Yeah, but I'm sure that's paid by the grant.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But what I'm confused in is how that information is even germane to what we're talking about in the synopsis the summary that we're handing in, because that doesn't change the overall trajectory or business plan of LCI as described in how it's written. So I don't see how sneaking in that 85 households would be getting hooked up in this federal grant deal. I just don't see the connection really. Or like I said, how can organically be infused?
Well, I think we are going to look stupid unless we make some reference to it, because it is germane, it is about our town, and it is a big piece of publicity here. I don't think we need to get into great detail of it, but we do indicate, I think there's an opening to stick it in that paragraph we're looking at in a factual and a brief and perhaps in a somewhat innocuous way. It's a limited grant for special purposes. And there it is. I think that if we didn't put it in, then when this report goes up, as I think Josh mentioned, or what someone else mentioned, we're going to look like we've been asleep.
Yeah, Steve.
So I don't want to necessarily raise the temperature on this, but when I got David Kinney's cover transmittal sending us the press release, I had a yellow light flash above my head, and I have his press release up that he sent to all of us, and it says. Today, we received official news that Tidewater Telecom and Lincolnville Networks have received a major grant via COVID relief funds to extend free, in caps, high-speed fiber to over 300 eligible student and teacher households in Lincolnville, Hope, and Appleton. As I understand it, at least 85 of these households are in Lincolnville. The attached press release contains the basics. Lincolnville Networks expects to start running fiber within 2 weeks and have the work completed by calendar year end. That would be December 31st, 2020, I presume. They are optimistic that they can finish all or virtually all of the work before the deadline. Additional good news, LCI will be sizing fiber runs for the road and not just the students. This will ensure that residents living along one of the new lines will be able to access the broadband service as well, albeit due to the short time period to construct the grant work. Any additional connections may have to wait until after the grant work is completed. Stay tuned for more information available in the coming days. This is great news, and it greatly advances the Board of Selectmen's goal of 100% access to broadband service. Now, I know that, David Kinney is not a member of the Board of Selectmen, but I worry that this announcement, coming very close to the same time that our report has a totally different tone. Our report says we're behind the 8 ball. A vast majority of our fellow townfolk are unhappy, unsatisfied, and we need to do something different. That's a very different tone than this transmittal, which says, good news, problem solved. We're almost there.
Yeah.
And everyone can go home now. There's nothing to see here, folks.
Yeah, Cheryl.
I was on a Google group, Google or Facebook, I don't remember, but someone was talking about their town as well. I want to say nearby, and they had the same offer from Lincolnville Cable. I don't know how they're going to do all these towns all at once. I mean, it doesn't seem feasible since they told us it was going to take years to give us anything.
Well,
So
we
not
don't,
sure
oh, sorry.
I just don't know what's going on with them.
Well, they may have gotten a very large infusion of cash. We don't know how much money they got in the grant, and if it was enough for them to hire extra staffing, we don't really know. And honestly, all of that is, I'm not so much concerned about that, but like I said, I mean, I agree with Stephen as far as the immediate reaction internally I had when I read the email from David. It was exactly how I felt. But like I said, I don't really understand. I don't want to feel like we're withholding anything, but at the same time, like I said, when it's describing LCI, I don't understand what them receiving federal funds to do something has to do with the plan of moving forward with bringing internet to the town, because 85 households doesn't begin to put a candle to the amount of households that need still to be hooked up. So I'm not saying to withhold any information. I just don't think it makes us look stupid to just insert this piece of information randomly into the report. And now if I saw a suggestion in a way that it could be built in where it had flow, I would be all for that. Again, I'm not for withholding it. I just can't envision a way that it fits into this report naturally, because I don't understand what purpose it serves. And I'm totally open to explanation or ideas that relate to that.
Well, I would go back to the second paragraph, which makes direct reference to seeking funding, right? And we should keep in mind, unless I'm misremembering, that one of the kickoffs for this initiative was the fact that LCI approached Lincolnville with a suggestion that we jointly seek to find funding so that we could move up the calendar for the implementation of further broadband, right? Didn't we have the initial meeting with LCI? They talked about being able to accelerate the distribution or the implementation of undisturbed broadband if we could chip in a certain amount of money. Now that money has come from a different source and they're doing it. So it doesn't seem to me to be inconsistent with the position they had previously. My own sense is that we should put it in here in paragraph 2, not make more of it than it is. We could certainly say that it would, that would serve at most 85 families out of a large number that are, I just don't think we can ignore it. And it does seem to me that putting it up front is probably the best place to essentially take the air out of it, rather than having to wrestle with it in our recommendations. I don't know. I mean,
okay. Yeah.
Just as a matter of information, wouldn't we, has anyone from our committee spoken to LCI about the terms of this press release? Wouldn't it be appropriate for us as the committee that's researching this and has talked to people from Belfast and Calais and all sorts of other places to be fully up to date with what's happening in Lincolnville?
Yes, David.
Yeah, so in some ways, I think we're overthinking this. I think we should reference this. I think we should describe it objectively. I agree with Steve that, the kind of puff piece here was a little bit like, what am I missing? What's going on? And it seemed to be kind of overselling what was going on. So I think one of us should look into the real facts so we know them. And I assume when we do this report and we have a discussion with the Board of Selectmen, we should be ready to perhaps deal with people trying to say, hey, we're all set. But I wouldn't, totally spend the whole night talking about this in terms of our report, because I think as long as we just simply describe it, that's enough, and let's move on.
So I would agree with that. I think that perhaps in this paragraph 2, we just objectively say, this is what's happening. I mean, we have nothing to do with it, and there's no action needed or even possible by the Board of Selectmen. So we just state it, we move on, let the air out. Would anyone here like to take a crack at crafting that language later on?
Yeah, I will, sure.
Mike, okay.
But one thing I would like to find out, and it gets back to an earlier point about approaching LCI, I think it would be good if in our report, if we could say that whatever LCI is planning to do with the CARES money, reaching the 85 is going to take care of a certain percentage of what they're planning to do. So it's going to cover so many miles, which is going to cover so many, a certain portion of what they were planning to do to reach 100%. The selectmen are going to want to know, okay, so what does that mean? How does that get us closer to 100% access? If we can say, well, it gets you another, 7% or another 16 miles or something to that effect, then we're speaking with a little knowledge rather than just kind of talking about what we don't know. So it'd be nice if one of us, and I will do it, pick up the phone and call LCI, and without getting into anything with LCI, just say, hey, what is this going? How many miles will you be stringing, and what percentage will that get you? How much closer will that get you to 100%? I think the selectmen would be interested in knowing that.
Yeah, I agree.
It sounds good to me.
Yeah, and we'd be interested in knowing it too.
Yeah,
so
sure.
I think Mr. Sneed is making an excellent point, and I would love if you really are serious about making the call and just finding out a little more and then coming back to us and letting us know what you did find out. But it's clearly, if it gets us 7% further along the way, great. But 7% is very far from 100%.
Right, and it could be a higher number than 7 or a lower number than 7. We don't know. So it'd be good to find out and speak from knowing something about this.
Okay, great. All right, let's move on from that. Let's see. So I'm going to come down here. I'm not sure. So under number 4, I'm not sure what should be said here. Just I'm gonna write something fairly basic, like 359 residents from Lincolnville responded to the survey. X number were electronic, 46 were on paper. Give a handful of statistics. Maybe just leave it here. Maybe add more, and then when we go through the report, I'll show you the full breadth of the survey results that I'd like to include.
As the attachment.
As the attachment, yeah.
Could, Josh, could you also, I thought the one other one that's important to highlight right up front, when you add all the blocks together of who works from home, it's like 74% or 75% of the households. And I think that's really important to stress, that work is moving into the house.
And one other thing that I didn't see in the survey and haven't seen anywhere in the report that I also think is super important to stress is that, I just got fiber from LCI last month, and it only cost, $2,500 plus $100 a month. So somewhere in here, we have to say that current fiber connections in Lincolnville are costing between $2,000 and $3,500 per household. So, when somebody comes back and says, what are you talking about? There's lots of fiber. Sure, there's lots of fiber for those who can pay $2,000 to $3,500 per household to be connected. That is not probably the majority of our town.
Stephen, isn't at least some portion of that the fact you live down a dirt road?
I live on 235 at Moody Mountain on the same road as the town office, the school, and the post office between 105 and 52. There are very few roads in Lincolnville that are more major thoroughfares than mine. And when LCI told me that I was going to have to wait several years before I would get fiber, unless I wanted to. Their original quote was $5,000. I pointed out to them that I find, because I live in such a remote area, I said, are you telling me that Route 235 between 105 and 52 that goes by the town office, the school, and the post office is the most remote part of Lincolnville? So, God help people who who actually do live on a dirt road.
Well, I live on a dirt road, and the quote I had was 10,000. I mean, certainly,
Okay.
Well,
Mine was 20,000, and I live on High Street.
So my big benefit living on 235 was 2,000. But my point to all of us is, I don't know about you guys, but for me, that's outrageous. The vast majority of people in the town could never afford $2,000 per household to be connected.
Well, everyone, just keep in mind, in the attachment with the survey results, which I'm going to run through this part, I want to include every written comment that was submitted with the survey. And a number of them say, I have access to fiber and I'm choosing not to because I've been quoted $2,000, $3,000. And so just let people speak for themselves and have it there. And maybe I struggle with, it would be nice to put some quotes in the executive summary of the survey, but I don't want to cherry pick where it seems like we're trying to make them look at that as
Then
possible.
why don't you put it, I agree with you, Josh. I think that's a very good point. So why don't you just put a bullet here that says, even for those for whom fiber is available, we have comments, which you'll see in the attachment, that they are often at prohibitive cost.
I think that's a good idea. I certainly agree.
Okay.
That's the way to
Can you
think
say that one more time?
Even for those for whom fiber is available, we learned in our survey, it is often at prohibitive cost.
Okay, great. Any other hot takes about points to make regarding the survey in the executive summary? Okay. Well, let's move on to B, summary of options and recommendations for going forward. Any thoughts about these first three?
Yeah, number two, I am concerned with the wording. I think everything's fine, but when it says, and by doing so, get a guarantee from the grantor that the project is, all of these things after that. I mean, we don't know that we can get that. This is all hypothetical. And I don't feel comfortable posting something that's so hypothetical as an option. I have no problem with saying a system getting the money and blah, 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 but none of these things have ever been possible for us to get from them, and it's not possible at this moment. So I just am concerned about that. I have no problem about putting in the option with Workman to get funding, but to put in that specific of a language when we've never known that to be true is troublesome for me.
Well, yeah, I don't think I was wrong when I said that. That, from what I remember, is that if Connect Maine gives money to someone, part of the contract is that it be started and completed by certain dates.
Yeah,
and that's the only advantage that I could see myself is working with LCI, other than perhaps working with them and perhaps negotiating with them and getting a service or two.
Well, that's the part that I'm talking about being hypothetical, because it's in their own language specifically, and I believe that Jonathan has talked about this before, is that they can and will not give any guarantee of their services or speeds. So the timeline is one thing, but everything after that is hopes. And I really don't think we should be projecting that on there, especially when, like I said, as a company, they specifically state, not only in small print, but they will tell you that there is no guarantee of a delivery speed from them. So,
so you're talking about
that last part.
This doesn't talk about delivery speed, Jordan.
It talks about minimum speed, other services, service and support. It talks about all the things that we have trouble with them right now. So I just think that should be eliminated. Not the, I misspoke when I said the completion date. It was really just the part when it has to do with working together to the end, because that's really all very hypothetical. And I just think it's projecting in a way that's not, it's skewing it in a, I don't appreciate it.
Right, but the sentence says by working together, the town might be able to. So I'm fine with it. You know,
But I can
think we have
also
to
see
leave
that,
Let Dave,
that is,
let Dave finish. Let Dave finish, Jordan.
I mean, I think there is, I know we all have a poor view of LCI, but they could surprise us at some point. And I think we have to leave the door open to something being negotiated that sets some quality standards. So I'm fine with the language that's written. I agree with Jordan. You know, right now I don't have high expectations, but
no, that's not what I meant. I'm sorry. And that's, I
Jordan,
know
I'm
that
I'm still talking. Let's not jump over each other. So anyways,
it's hard. Mike.
I think the language as written works fine for me.
Okay. Yeah, Stephen.
Point of information. Is the point here getting a guarantee from the grantor? Does that refer to, for example, that Connect Maine would require, in order to make a grant to us, that we get a guarantee that the project is begun and completed by a certain date? In other words, I think that might not refer to LCI, but it might refer to the grantor.
I thought that's what it said, yeah.
So we could clear it up by just saying the grantor, e.g. Connect ME.
You could, yeah. If you want to be more specific, sure.
It's not really that the grantor doesn't give you the guarantee. The grantor requires that you get a guarantee in order to be eligible for the grant, I think, is the way it actually works.
I'm sure there's a better way to put it. You're probably right.
So if you said, and by doing so, get a grant, paren, e.g. from Connect ME, which requires the contractor to guarantee start and stop dates, close paren. That could be one of our options, because then it makes it clear that it is the funder, Connect Maine, that would require, and if LCI is not prepared to give such an assurance, we would not qualify for the Connect Maine grant.
Could we just simplify the language to say, and by doing so, get a commitment that the project is begun and completed by certain dates? Just keep it cleaner.
That's on
Begun and completed by a certain date.
Yeah, by
Just by a date certain.
completed by date certain, yeah. By a fixed date or something. By an agreed upon date, or
Yeah.
that's fine. Yeah.
Okay. And this other half, how do we feel about that?
Well, I would like to keep it in there because Jordan, I hear what you're saying, and I agree that it's highly unlikely that we would have leverage, but I think it's an option, that it's a possibility that I think the selectmen need to be aware of, and let them or whoever is making a decision about what the town wants to do decide if it's feasible or not. Highly unlikely or partly unlikely. Yeah, go ahead.
The fact that it's highly unlikely seems to kind of be in contention with the fact that we're putting it in there. If it was likely, then it would be a good thing to mention, but maybe the wording needs to be changed a little bit in the past or something. I don't know. Let
me raise just the thought that what we're trying to do with this document, I think, is to advocate a set of recommendations. And while I know that there's a lot of very strong feeling against LCI, it seems to me that as a document and as a persuasive work, that being somewhat neutral in laying out the options is going to make it a better document to get what we want in the end, rather than skewing it as a screed against LCI. I think the survey will make it obvious that LCI is not doing a good job. I think the more we can be kind of neutral in the way we describe it, the more effective it'll be as a document.
Yes, Jordan.
I agree. And I just want to preface this by saying, I understand that I have said many things, quote unquote, against LCI, but all those are reactions to what they have done. So I don't have a prejudice against them. I don't want to not do business with them. I've said before, if they could flip a switch and do exactly what we need, I'd say go for it. When you talk about being skewed, this is a skewed statement in itself, because what you're doing is promoting something that does not exist in reality. That has nothing to do with me not liking LCI. You could say by working together, the town might be able to. That is saying something that I just don't even know how to describe it, but it's not right. You can word that in a different way. Like, we are hoping to secure guarantees about the following things, but not, it's advertising like might is, I just don't, I wish that somebody else could express what I'm feeling, or that I could express what I would like to say. It's not anything having to do with anti-LCI sentiment. It is a skewed statement. It's biased. It projects, and I don't feel like it belongs there. And I think in 3 words, you'd be able to change the whole feeling of that last paragraph. It has nothing to do with me being against LCI. And I would like to say that sentiment of me, quote unquote, being against LCI, I feel clouds some of your judgments about the way that I say things or talk about things or how it's presented. I don't have a skew against LCI. I don't appreciate the way they've been running their business, and we have a goal and certain standards that we're looking for this project. And if LCI can meet that, double thumbs up. But this specific situation has to do with how we are presenting a skewed statement to an already biased select board.
George, Jordan, what are those 3 words you're referring to?
It's the town might be able to negotiate. By working at that statement that we might be able, I don't know why that hypothetical needs to be inserted there, but we could say that by negotiating with LCI, we can give an effort, or we can try to negotiate the cost, because that's all we can do. The inference that comes from might, in my opinion, is that there's a likelihood of this happening and it should be pursued. And I feel like that is a biased statement, whether you're for or against LCI.
What about just that? The town could try to negotiate the cost.
Absolutely.
That's great.
Because that to me, and I may be oversensitive, but it just feels completely different.
To lower
This is also laying out the options. When we get down to our recommendations, why don't we say more clearly that, the past history with LCI makes us doubtful that we will be able to control cost, service, and availability.
And I thought everything else was written. I mean, I think the whole thing was written beautifully, but when it comes down to the recommendations, it was great. And I don't think this affects it down there. I mean, I thought it was concise. It was succinct. It was wrapped up nicely. I think the recommendations are fantastic.
Well, I think this is an improvement, certainly, and reflects what we actually all wanted. So thank you.
And I just had a point about paragraph 3, and I think it's good now. Yeah. So we've seen like the Islesboro model, where they own the dark fiber, but they also have a kind of a closed system where they have GWI running it and they control it all together. And then these other models, like the Baileyville model, as the dark fiber, and they have an open system where various service providers can come in. I just want to check with everybody, because we're not all the way down there, but are people thinking that we're moving towards, at this point, leaning towards having dark fiber and then having multiple service providers, an open system where multiple service providers could come on if they qualify? Or are we just not there yet? Because when the first time this read, it read as though we were recommending the Islesboro model, which I think is probably much more expensive than just providing the infrastructure. So are we on the same page on that? Or?
We could just go around here. I can call in everyone, and if you have an opinion, feel free to state it. If you don't, then don't. But yeah, it just say if you support the open system, which means the town doesn't run the system itself, or a closed system where the town does, like Islesboro. So I'll start with Cheryl.
I don't have an opinion right now. I don't know enough about it.
Okay, George.
I don't think we're there yet.
Okay, Steve. Oh, I think you're muted.
Sorry, I agree. I don't have a point of view yet.
Okay, Mike.
I think an open system is where eventually this town will end up, but that could be long, long way down the road. I don't think we can afford a closed system.
Okay, Jordan.
I think we're just knocking on the door of this, and these are all just possibilities. So for me, I want to, like I said, we're just at the threshold. So I'm looking forward to learning more. And who knows, there may be something, a hybrid, something else that we don't even know about. So.
Okay, Gina.
Yeah, I think we're on a threshold.
Okay, and Dave.
Yeah, I think I've already spoken. No, I'm good with that. And I think the language is broad enough to kind of leave that whole issue open.
Okay. So the next thing, I didn't change this because I wanted just to have a quick conversation with everyone. In number 3, further investigate the feasibility of a town-supported or a town-owned fiber optic infrastructure. How do we feel about supported versus owned?
Let me just explain that I made that suggestion because one of the things that had been discussed as one of the options was setting up an independent entity that the town would sit on the board of, but it would not be the town itself that actually had the obligation on debt.
Got it.
So we'd be supporting it, but there'd be an intermediary entity that would insulate the town from, direct liability.
Could we just hit a backslash in between supported / owned? Because that way it's.
I have no problem with that. Just that we've
That makes
talked
sense.
about there being another option. That's all.
Or owned, yeah.
Yeah.
Or owned.
Town
It's not
supported
really,
Or owned. Okay.
or owned.
Sure.
Yeah, it's not both.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, thanks.
And then quickly, fiber optic, is there a dash or not?
Ooh,
Because I'd like to choose one or the other for the document.
I don't think so. I don't think I've seen a dash in there, but maybe I'm wrong.
Okay.
I think it's whatever Cheryl says.
Yes. So with that.
I don't know.
And
Okay.
Josh, there's a little parens right there that I don't think belongs there. See that right there?
Commute a little, space?
After cost, there's a little parens.
Oh,
Yeah, close
parentheses.
parent.
Thank you. There we go. Yeah. Okay. All right. Anything else on number 3 before we move down to the recommendation? Okay, let's move on to here. Any thoughts? Any notes?
I thought it was great. Really good.
Yep. I like it.
Okay.
So do I.
Okay. Then
Can
we
I
have,
just say again, as a housekeeping item, I think we should insert page numbers. I tried to make it 2 pages. I think it's ending up 3.
1 second. Let me just see.
But I think you can just insert page numbers at the menu at the top.
I always prefer page numbers.
I do too, because then when people are talking about stuff, it's much
Mhm.
easier to find.
Yeah. How's that? Bottom right-hand corner?
Nice.
Done. Okay. Attachments. So we have the charge. We have copies of the meeting minutes. I'll be sure to include that. The discussion of results. Discussion of going forward work plan and timetable. You just go to, do we have that?
I don't think so.
Attachment 4. Okay. So what is attachment 4?
Well, let me just raise for the group what I was thinking, and then everybody should react. My thought was that the Board of Selectmen seems to want a pretty clear description of what we plan to do and when we plan to do it by. You know, that we had a date on which our committee ends. And I'm looking for all the ways that we can preempt them saying no, because we want them to approve our memo. And I'm just wondering if we ask for an open-ended thing with no particular target dates of when we think we're going to hit some milestones, will it be easier for them to say, no, please come back to, or maybe, but please come back to us with more specific plans. So that's the only reason I put it there, in case they would want that.
Okay.
I like that idea. So would it be something like we would say, here it is, November. So maybe by the first quarter, we have the consultant fully involved with us, and we've have some time frame for somewhat longer time frame for getting the grants. And then we have expected recommendations by the end of 2021, something, you know, something like that.
Didn't we have a sort of a sketch of timing when we talked to the last of the consultants?
Exactly,
And
yeah.
I think we were well into I think an 18-month period.
You also have the town meeting, which is a critical date that we should really factor into this.
Mhm.
Who would like to write that?
I'd volunteer Steve.
Well, let me just ask a question. I do think it's a good idea, and I would be happy to do a draft of it on the same basis I've done this draft, which is, you know, don't expect much. But I would have thought it would be that we would take the tasks that we had identified for ourselves above, right, of what we would do next, and then kind of lay those against some kind of schedule. Because we've said in number 2, you know, here's kind of what we think we're going to do. We're going to retain the advisor. We're going to explore the financing options. We're going to talk to other towns and consider the possibility of doing joint versus separate. We're going to talk about whether it's, you know, town owned or, you know, all that. So I would take some of the major issues and frankly, as much as anything else, just for our own discipline to keep us moving, and lay them out by quarter for the next, let's say, 18 months, that at the end of the day results in, you know, making the goal, you know, finally getting where the board and the town wants us to be. Just so it's clear that we're not asking for, because everything I've heard so far from the other places that have done this is 4 years is the outside, but now, number one, we're already a part way down the track. And number 2, there are many more resources, including advisors, available. And we should be able to do this in more like, you know, 18 months. So I'd like to sort of show that we make a touchdown at the end of this, so that the Board of Selectmen says, okay, now, you know, this is appetizing. This looks good. It's not forever. And it's better than LCI, by the way.
And that gets us to town meeting of 2022.
When is that?
It's in June, right?
It's in June, but you know, keep in mind, we can always call a special town meeting. So
Right, but not many people come out for those.
Well,
So
when is it typically?
June.
June.
Yeah, you have town meetings in June, but then you have earlier deadlines to get it on the warrant for town
Much
meeting,
earlier, yeah.
and that is I want to say end of March, but I could be wrong. It could be.
Yeah, it's
But
roughly
it's early.
that.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's still snow on the ground. You know,
Right,
so there's
well,
earlier deadlines.
I'll take a stab at this, but because we're not going to probably have another meeting before we file this, Josh, you have to figure out, because what I'm going to do really will be a draft.
Well, okay. On that point, it feels like we really could use another meeting, frankly. how does the committee feel about meeting next week, next Thursday?
Fine yeah.
I'm free. It just feels like it would improve with one
I
more,
agree.
check in.
We could have a mini meeting, a short one.
Yeah. George, you're looking skeptical.
I am skeptical,
Okay.
but that's sort of my nature.
That's good.
I
Realism.
think
Yeah.
we're sort of blue skying the idea of having a timeline here. Let me just raise the possibility that, I certainly hear and agree with the notion that we should have something in here. I'm just wondering if we should have sort of a deadline for, initial recommendations that say 6 months out, and then the thought that we could have something for a specified town meeting or something like that within X number of months. I think the more detail we put in this, the more we're just guessing.
Well, I tend to agree. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I have nothing more to offer than that. I would just, if Steve, you want to take a cut at it, I just try to keep it, sort of general and kind of soft, rather than sort of pulling things out of the air in terms of, well, in 3 months, we'll have a recommendation from the consultant when we haven't hired a consultant yet. I just think softer is probably better here,
Well,
but I could be wrong.
No, I think you're making a very good point. Let me ask another point of information, which will reveal embarrassingly how few town meetings I have attended. I'm assuming, and you should correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm assuming that whatever it is we do come up with at the end of the day, the Board of Selectmen will not want to make a decision, particularly if it's a financial commitment, especially if it requires guaranteeing $1.5 million or $2 million, which is what I'm pretty sure we'll end up with at some point, without the town actually approving it in town meeting, as opposed to the Board of Selectmen doing it. I mean, so I'm assuming that that's true. You should tell me if that's wrong.
It's
The
And
Board of
required.
What?
It's required.
It's required. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, in that case, aiming for, so June of 21, we're not going to be ready. But June of 22, we are going to be ready.
Well, June of 21, we could be ready to appropriate $5,000.
Oh, I'm assuming the Board of Selectmen is going to do that now.
Oh, well, don't do that.
No, I wouldn't either.
We have contingency. I think we have at least $5,000.
Well, how do we hire a consultant if we don't have any money?
The consultant the other day said that typically they know as long as we, it's coming up in June, they'll do it for free, on that understanding.
Oh, so you're saying June of 21 would be when we get the consultant or feasibility funding approved, which is the 5,000, and June of 22 is when we'd have the full plan to present to the town for a vote.
In a perfect world, yeah. Now, keep in mind, we have a contingency. I think there's at least $5,000. If there were 3 people on the Board of Selectmen that thought that was a good use of money, we could spend that.
And we're going to apply for the Connect Maine and the Island Institute grants that are available for this.
Right. But I wouldn't assume that would happen. So just keep that in mind, that is something that's possible.
If only there were 3 people on the select board that would vote for something like that.
So to wrap this up, to kind of merge George and Steve, let's do the schedule. Let's keep it more general so we don't get, looking like we're missing a bunch of deadlines. And let's check in next week so we can all approve it, but let's not spend a ton of time on it.
I think that, yeah,
Makes
that
sense.
sounds good.
So that's Thursday, the 19th at the same time.
Yes. Check. Yes. Let's see. There was a point I wanted to make, and I wanted to make sure I didn't forget it. Let me just see. Think I forgot it. It'll come back to me. Let's talk about the survey. I don't think there's really, this is going to be controversial, but I just want to show you guys my plan. So in terms of workflow of actually making this report, here's what I'm thinking, that I'm happy to be the master compiler of this.
Okay.
And I'm going to use a really advanced program called Apple Preview. And basically put everything together as a PDF. So we're going to have this Google Doc with the original charge, with all the meeting minutes, and with the survey results as one big master PDF. And that's the public document that I hope everyone shares far and wide. If that sounds good. So hold on, let me bring this up. So basically, my plan is to first say, we had this many responses, this many people did it electronically, this many people did a paper version. Are you a resident of Lincolnville, full or part-time resident? Not include any addresses because that's unnecessary. Is internet access important? Your current provider? And I'm just going to screenshot these graphs because I think it's a nice representation versus writing it out.
Right.
What kind of service do you have? What do you currently pay? I don't see the value in including the download speed you're paying for, the upload speed, what you're actually getting, because it's all over the map and it doesn't specify if it's fiber optic or DSL, and it feels kind of meaningless. Yeah, Steve.
Before you get to that, when you're on the how much do you pay graph, remember we were going to say somewhere, yeah, it's $80 a month, but it's also $4,000 to sign up. Where does that come in? Is that only in the comments, or do we actually have data about what people have paid?
The only data we have on the installation costs come from comments. Yeah, that's something we didn't collect. Is there any objection to not including the download upload speeds? Okay. Just feels like a lot of noise. Obviously, are you satisfied with your internet? If no, why not? I'm thinking keep the first 4. The other ones are 0.4% of the responses. Yeah. It doesn't feel necessary.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Obviously, these 2, anyone in your household use the internet for work? Do you have students? And then does your internet speed negatively impact? Keep the first, I guess, 5. And then everything else, again, is an outlier. How much are you willing to spend? Now, this is something I may add a comment here. Going through the written comments, there's actually a lot of confusion. I think our survey was pretty successful. This question was not written well because a lot of people read it as how much more. They kept adding the word more in their heads. How much more would you be willing to spend? And a lot of people wrote as a comment, I wouldn't spend any more, maybe $10. And that's, I don't know how we would have gotten around that, but all these other people got the idea. So you have this range of, 30 to 110 here. Do you have access to fiber optic, but choose not to subscribe? Yes, no. And then we have, if yes, why do you choose not to? And then we have, do you have suggestions for expanding fiber optic? And then do you have any?
Excuse me 1 second. So just to go, why you choose not to. The second biggest reason was, or the first biggest reason is cost. Right? Why you choose not to?
If yes, why do you choose not to? Well, yeah, cost. That was what people wrote. But I'm going to let them speak for themselves. Let me share something else.
By the way, you may want to also, I hate to be a stickler, but this is years at McKinsey, number the graphs so people can talk about specific exhibits.
Okay, good idea. Let me write that down. I want every suggestion any of you can throw at me. That's helpful.
Will you be able to keep the color? Because I think the color is really important.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm gonna ask that our town administrator put this on the Town of Lincolnville homepage, the PDF, and we'll share it on Facebook and the Google group and all that. Color is very important to this. Okay, and then I'm gonna be taking out the spaces and putting it in a doc, but So all of these comments, if yes, why do you choose not to? If they write, we have fiber and use it, they're confusing my question and I won't include it because that's not
Okay.
germane. But you have, you've got like 150 comments here. This person said $10,000, too long to wait. I mean, it's really, when you read the comments, it's quite damning. Okay, then we have, do you have any suggestions for expanding fiber optic? And there's a whole bunch, but I think they're all useful. So it's helpful to have them there. And then you have the final one. Do you have any general comments? And then someone here wrote, I want to find it. Let's see, hold on. Maybe I can't find it, but it said Godspeed to the Lincolnville Broadband Committee. So I thought that was very kind.
I saw that.
I kind of like the pun there too. Yeah, it's good. Yeah.
Godspeed, yeah.
Yeah.
Another thing that I'll add a comment. There is, I'm gonna write this note to myself. There is confusion about monopolies, and a lot of people think that LCI has an exclusive right to distribute internet in Lincolnville, and somehow the town is the one that made that. So, so I'll be sure to write something that says that's not the case. They are just the only provider that has deployed broadband internet.
Has chosen to be in the market.
Yeah. So I think that's it in terms of the survey. Are there any questions about what I'd like to include?
Josh, I just want to thank you again. You've put a lot of work into it. It's a great product.
Ditto.
Yeah,
Thank
it
you.
really is nice. It looks
Here it
good.
is.
Oh, and I think someone's clapping. Are you clapping your hands there, Stephen? Wow. I've never seen that. Nice.
I live on Zoom all day, so
Oh, okay.
You're the pro then.
Okay.
All right. Are there any other? Oh, let me. Okay, I'm not sharing the screen. Good. Are there any other comments about the report in general that we think could be tweaked or added?
It's looking good.
Can I ask a question? Again, a point of information for those who are selectmen or know how the board works. When this is delivered, is that the meeting where we are present and there's discussion? Or is it simply delivered on that date and then it's the next meeting where they've had time to read it and think about it where it's discussed?
It will be, and thank you for mentioning that. I've got to make sure I get this to the board well ahead of time. So they will have it. I'm going to make sure they have a digital copy as well. I really hate our paper packets. This is going to be a very long document, but they'll have time to read it, digest it, and then it's on the 23rd that we'll have a discussion. Hopefully all of you can be there.
But next week, I think Stephen really raises a very important point. We should talk an agenda item next week about how we present and what types of questions we should be ready to deal with.
That's a great idea.
So it's December, it's November 23rd?
Yes.
Right.
And what time is the meeting usually?
6 p.m.
November 23rd at 6 p.m.
But we could have an executive session before about some topic. So just check the agenda. Okay. All right. Is there anything else? Okay. I guess move to non-agenda items.
Yeah, I want to mention, Josh, you sent the link to a Zoom meeting that Connect Maine did. This was a few days ago. Was anybody else on that? Stephen, were you there? Okay, I couldn't see anybody.
How did that go?
I thought it went well. I learned a lot, and I also learned not to like type something and with a flourish on Zoom because people think you're raising your hand, and when you're really not. Anyway, no, I thought it was I really, I liked seeing, there was a lot of interest. There were 100 people there, but there were people from all over, from a lot of towns, broadband committees, select boards, and that was nice to see. I mean, and not everyone was all aboard, on board the fiber train. And it was nice to hear moderating views as well. That wasn't the point of the Zoom meeting whatsoever. It all had to do with, getting objectives, translating them into grant priorities and numerics and whatnot. But yeah, no, I really enjoyed it. I appreciate you sending it around. Also did learn that we did miss, or will miss, and we might want to put this in the report, the first round of planning grants that Connect Maine is giving, the 15,000 grants. That's November 20th is the deadline.
Okay.
So we can't make that.
Yeah. Okay.
So I don't know if
I just remembered something I wanted to mention. So Camden and Rockport, I think I might have sent this email around from the broadband task force. Camden and Rockport is working with another company to plan out how they want to look at deploying dark fiber, and they've asked if Lincolnville wants to join in on that planning aspect of it. And in a perfect world, like if it was up to me, I would say yes, Lincolnville wants to explore that with Camden and Rockport. But I don't know if there's a financial aspect to it, and I don't know how we would even should we mention anything like that in the report? I think we've all agreed that we should just not mention the words Camden and Rockport. And I guess we have to wait, let them figure it out and see how that develops. And then if there's a more amenable board to working with them in the future, then we would jump in then. But I just wanted to share that.
Yeah, and I would just add to that what I've learned is that this is a hyper local issue, like they count phone poles.
Yeah.
So, despite, because I'm also with you about normally wanting to collaborate, especially since we're together in the school and the transfer station and other things, there's a tradition of collaborating with these towns. But frankly, this is so hyper local and so specific to us. We're looking at number of phone poles. We're looking at density of housing. Lincolnville is very different than Camden and Rockport with respect to both of those.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, if there's nothing else, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Before that, I wanted to apologize for David. I didn't mean to be trampling over you. It's when I opened up the Google Documents, my computer was freezing up, and so when I thought you were done talking, I started. So I didn't mean to be. I just sorry about that, but that's why we're here. So
Jordan,
yeah.
I'm a lawyer. I spend all day yelling at people to let me finish my sentences. So
I know.
can't help it.
But with that, I'll
interrupt.
I will make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that. Oh, we have lots of seconds. Great.
All right. Moved and seconded. Any discussion? No discussion. I'll call for a vote. Cheryl.
Yes.
George.
Yes.
Jordan.
Yes.
Steve.
Yes.
Dave.
Yes.
Gina.
Yes.
Okay. Mike.
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. We are adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone. We'll see you
Till next
next
week.
Thursday.
Week.
Night.
Right.
All right. Good night.
Cheers.